Hey there, my name is Porsha Lauri. Welcome to or welcome back to my YouTube channel, and I am so freaking pumped for today's video. So today is another installment of my series, What Did We Learn? We are talking about Zenon, Girl of the 21st Century. Now, as always, if you enjoy listening to my opinions on all things pop culture related, movies, TV shows, music, what have you, do me a solid and drop a like on this video, then run over to that subscribe button and hit the bell next to it so you can be notified every time I upload. This series is not exclusive to just children's media. It's just, this is kind of how the idea came to me. So if you have any suggestions for different movies, TV shows, or even music where you want to discuss with me what it is that we were supposed to learn from it, let me know in the comments down below. I think that's enough of an intro. Let's go into the synopsis of Zenon. Zenon Carr is a 13-year-old mischievous troublemaker living on a space station orbiting Earth in 2049 AD. Shortly after winning a contest to dance with her favorite band, Microbe, in the first ever concert in space, she gets in trouble with Commander Plank. He, along with her parents, banish her to Earth on a grounding mission to the extreme. What Commander Plank doesn't know is that the bigwig investors coming to visit actually have devastating plans for the station. It ends up being up to Zenon and her squad of misfits to make sure that doesn't happen. So that's the synopsis of Zenon. Now let's break down each part. So moving forward, I'm not gonna keep calling this Zenon Girl of the 21st Century because that is a mouthful. So we're just gonna call it straight up Zenon. So Zenon came out in September of 1999 on the Disney Channel. And this was definitely at the beginning of the craze of the monthly Disney Channel movies. We're introduced immediately to this 13-year-old girl named Zenon Carr. She lives on a space station with her parents, who both are scientists. And she's just, you know, other than that, a pretty regular teenager. She likes to get into a little mischievous trouble, but she always has positive intentions. She's got a group of friends, and she kind of sees herself as a leader of said friends. Even though oftentimes she's leading them into trouble, she seems to really care about her friends and her entire space station. So when we first see Zenon in the movie, we're waking up with her on a day for school, and she has this kind of like cool ass alarm clock that, like, I guess she's set to have a message play when she woke up, and it kind of is like her getting motivated for the day and giving herself reminders. When I first saw this movie, I thought that was really weird to like wake up to a lecture from yourself, but in retrospect, as like a 30-something, I'm like, wow, that actually is pretty great to like hear your own like daily motivation from yourself. Like, she was ahead of her time. She knew how to self-care and self-motivate, and claps for that. One of the first mentions of Earth in the movie is Zenon saying how privileged she is to have the opportunity to live in space, and how inky it would be if she had to live on Earth. Which, like, right off the bat, it's like, oh, whoa, like, so much shade is being thrown already. Okay, I see how it is. Like, we're not good enough for you and your little space friends. Okay, we get it. But it's made very clear that Zenon has some type of fear built up around Earth and what it represents. So after we do our wake-up call with Zenon, we get to kind of see the layout of a little bit of the space station as she is running late to both breakfast and her morning class, I guess. I love that this movie really creates a whole universe in which that this takes place that doesn't feel too reminiscent of like modern times. So from the way that Zenon is dressed to vernacular, like everything is set up to be kind of its own thing. The vibe of everyone is like neon. And I wonder if that has something to do with like what's going on in the space around them, like certain meteor showers and different things that they get to experience. Maybe it's the clothing is kind of reminiscent of that. But I just like that it's its own style. It's like everyone on the space station has completely different style than what we would normally see on Earth. I think this kind of slapstick, like Zenon has to get to class on time thing, is a great way to introduce us to the characters. So it's really enforcing this idea that she does shenanigans like this all the time. So while Zenon is in class, she actually listens to a news report that's recently been posted that says that Microbe, her favorite artist of all time, is going to be coming to her space station to have the first rock concert in space. It's also mentioned that in this news report that there's going to be a contest for someone aboard the space station to have a chance to dance with Protozoa. So after class, Zenon and her friends get together to discuss what they're gonna do to enter the contest and kind of have a discussion of what's it gonna be like to have a real rock star aboard the space station. This also gives us a little insight into Zenon's background. We learned that she actually moved to the space station when she was 5 years old. Both of her parents are scientists. I think they're doing cancer research into looking for a cure, and they need a weightless chamber in order to do the work that they need to do, and that is why they live in the space station. I actually really appreciate that this is one of the few Disney movies where like the ridiculous things that are happening make a little bit of sense. I think all the other kids also chime in that at some point they move to the space station because their parents are also scientists, or they do something that's working on the ship. What seems kind of weird to me, this is the part that I kind of don't understand, is like, what exactly is the space station doing? Like, yes, there is this section of the station where they're working on cancer research, but then like, what is everybody else doing there? And also, like, how much funding had to go into this to like get people up there? Is this an experiment to see if we could live off the planet? Like, I just wanted a little bit more information. So throughout the time that we're on board the station, even at the beginning, we see that there are little mishaps that are happening all over the ship. Certain things are malfunctioning, it's being talked about in the background. So there's this understanding that the ship is in need of repair and it's in need of funding. Enter the curmudgeon Commander Plank. Commander Plank is constantly up Zenon's butt because he just doesn't like her troublesome shenanigans. I can't say I blame him, because most of the time when he interacts with Zenon, she is doing something semi-crazy. So it's kind of understandable why they have this little feud going. Parker Wyndham is coming for a visit, and it is imperative that everyone is on their best behavior and that they show Parker Wyndham that he should invest more money into this project. He even goes as far as looking directly at Zenon to ask everyone to please hone in on their craziness. And she's like, oh my God, he's totally looking at me. And it's like, yeah, dude, you're kind of a troublemaker. Now, right after this speech, you know what Zenon does? She decides to go on a little like scuba diving expedition to look at a solar flare outside of the space station. Looking back at this scene, I'm like, holy crap, girl, you could have died. You could have also murdered everyone else on board. That is the craziest thing. Like, looking back, I was like, oh, they never give Zenon a break. And now I'm like, no, Zenon was an idiot. So her parents tell her, like, if you don't get it together, they basically threaten that they are willing to send her to Earth, which is the ultimate punishment. The next day, Parker Wyndham and his assistant, Lutz, show up on board, and immediately Zenon is like, I don't like him. She senses something a little inky about these two, and she's just like, I'm pretty sure they are up to no good. While Zenon is trying her best to give this attitude that it's the most lunarious thing to live on a space station and the opportunities, she's kind of just cheesing it up for her parents' benefit. But ultimately, she does believe that something is not right with this Wyndham character. So she decides to start following them, specifically his assistant Lutz, especially once he enters a class 4 section of the station, whatever, that he is most definitely not supposed to be in. She gets even more vibes that something is not going right. But she's unable to confront him because he leaves the area in which they're in, and when she goes to type in the code, which has rubbed off her hand conveniently, she sets off all these alarms. This causes, you know, Commander Plank and her parents to have a sit-down discussion to tell her why this is completely inappropriate. She tries to reason with them and tries to tell them that she has a bad feeling in her gut about these guys, but they're not really interested in hearing it. And unfortunately for Zenon, her parents decide to do the ultimate grounding, sending her to Earth. So she has absolutely no idea what life on Earth is really like, and everything she has heard is pretty terrible. Her mother has told her horror stories about being mugged and having your car broken into and all sorts of crazy stuff, car accidents. So her entire understanding of Earth is basically that it's a wasteland. Like, everything down here is just hell, which, like, to some degree, she's right. With that understanding of what Earth has to offer, that is the most extreme punishment I could ever think of. I guess maybe there's less danger in the flight in this fictional universe, but damn, like, it just feels extra mean to like extradite her all the way to another planet. What if your parents were like, we're so done with you right now, we're sending you to Pluto until further notice? But before Zenon meets up with her aunt, she makes sure to leave Wyndham with one scaling note, and she says, just know that you might have everyone else fooled, but you didn't fool me. And then she tucks her hair behind her ear, it's an important note for later, and walks away. One of my favorite parts of this movie is meeting Zenon's aunt. I love Aunt Judy. She's kind of like, you guys remember Chucky from Rugrats? She's kind of that character, but as a fully grown woman. I loved scaredy cat characters growing up because I oftentimes was that friend. I was the one who was like, well, I don't think we should do that, guys. Like, I was that kid. So once Zenon meets with her aunt, she finally gets a crash course in what it's like to be an Earthling. And guess what? It sucks. The first thing that happens when she gets to Earth is like she falls because everything is so heavy and she has to walk off of this ramp to get off of the plane thing, rocket ship, whatever it is. Why did no one help her? Why couldn't anybody offer a hand or like wheelchair her up? She's lived in space since she was 5. She really has no clue what she's in for, and nobody gave her any tips and tricks of like how to survive. By the way, the special effects in this movie, oh man, are they bad, but fun at the same time. Besides falling off the plane, she immediately starts sneezing because you know the girl's gonna have a shit ton of allergies to all these things she's never been exposed to. Since she moved when she was 5, I also have to wonder, was she vaccinated? Can she be around all these people? Is she gonna bring smallpox back into the universe? Like, what's happening, right? Again, there's so many logistical questions. We're at lunch. We also get our first bullying experience of the movie so far. A very familiar face comes up from the table behind Zenon and tells her that her outfit sucks. But don't worry, Zenon's got another good one-liner, and she hits her back with, well, if you give me your face, then I'd have the most hideous costume ever. Which I've never had an opportunity to say that to someone. I probably never would, but man, it's just a great moment. And the reason I mentioned that the girl that comes up to her, whose name is Margie for the movie, is familiar is because if you were an avid Disney Channel watcher like I was as a kid, then you would recognize her as a movie surfer. And if you don't know what that is, a movie surfer back in the day on Disney Channel, they were kind of like movie journalists for Disney Channel. But Lauren Maltby, I want to say that's her last name. I don't remember. Sorry if I'm totally butchering it. Seeing her be the antagonist for the movie, I was like, oh, that's really fun. Even though she's verbally assaulted by Margie, she does seem to make some type of connection to a character named Gregory, who is played by Gregory Smith. Fun fact, you might recognize him because he was on the pretty popular WB show Everwood, but I remember him as being the other best friend in Harriet the Spy. One of my all-time favorite movies. The fact that I haven't done a What Did We Learn From That yet is ridiculous. I really need to get on that. So after the disastrous lunch, Zenon decides to just go home. She's really had enough, but she has no idea what's waiting in store for her. The next day she starts school, and that's just a whole nother treasure trove of silly antics. First they're in a swim class where the teacher comes up to her and verifies like, hey, you know how to swim, right? To which Zenon boasts that she like totally knows how to swim because she swam this big thing in space. I don't know why she wouldn't pull her aside and verify that she could swim. Put her in the water and see what she can do. So she almost drowns in the pool because, hey, surprise, she doesn't actually know how to swim in water because, again, she lived in space, hello? And they never showed any kind of like giant pool or anything. So I'm just gonna assume the space station probably doesn't have a pool. That also feels like a liability. Like that just seems like that could go wrong so easily, but I digress. And luckily Greg's there to save the day, but Zenon's really pissed off about it because he just keeps kind of showing up. It happens again when she's in line to buy food in the cafeteria, and they tell her the total and she's like, what? Like she literally, no one told her about how money works or that you should have money on. So many things no one told this girl. They just expected her to figure it out on her own. I would have skipped school at this point. I would have just gone home and just cried and just like been like, I'm not doing this. But Gregory comes up again to save the day and she's like, please leave me alone. I don't know you and I don't want your charity. I'll pay you back. leave me alone. But of course, later on, I think a day has passed or so because I feel like her outfit changes at some point, but she's trying to still find out more information about Wyndham. She still has the feeling that she wasn't wrong in the first place, and she's not gonna take this punishment lying down. Which, like, thank God, because once you find out what the big plan is, it's like, oh shit, if she hadn't stepped in and did something. So Zenon is trying her best to basically break into the Wyndham computer system, which, like, wow, that's really impressive if she could have pulled that off, which I guess makes sense because, again, parents are scientists. But anyway, she's unable to pull it off, and she knows that she's gonna need help if she wants to try to figure out what is actually going on. Enter Gregory again. So she finally reapproaches him, and she's like, hey, like, I could really use some help. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm sorry for also verbally assaulting you. To which he replies, can't do it right now, but do you want to go on a date with me to my job? To which she's like, okay. He works in the stables. It's just a very generic, vague thing. Zenon gets to meet her first horse, which she is so intimidated by. And then he even takes her to dinner where she learns about the fantastic thing that is fried food. And, like, I don't know how you could ever go back to not eating that. Like, the moment I got back to the space station, the first thing I'd want to do is be like, all right, we got to introduce some, like, completely non-sterile food. I don't think you could eat fried food and then be like, never having that again. No, there's no way. There's absolutely no way. So over dinner, Zenon kind of discusses why she's been grounded to Earth and that she still has a really bad feeling about these characters. So I think her and Greg end up going, like, over by the docks, and she's, like, able to dip her foot in the ocean for the first time, which she's also never done. And they start discussing what could be going on with the Wyndham situation. Greg is able to hack into the Wyndham computer station with, like, literally, like, 2 clicks of, like, fancy buttons. And he finds out that the Wyndham company actually doesn't have as much money as they are supposedly promising to the space station. I forgot to mention, before Zenon gets grounded and is sent to Earth, while she is packing, Mr. Wyndham is making an announcement to the station, and he promises them $500 million, which is insane. That is a lot of money. Fast forward, Greg has figured out that they're not even worth that much money. So now the question becomes, why would they promise money they don't have? Bum, bum, bum. So Greg's like, we gotta take this information to Andrew, my friend who's a hacker, and see what he can do to unfurl whatever's going on here. So Greg takes Zenon home where they get caught in the rain. It's very, very sweet. And he even tucks hair behind her ear. It's all very sweet and romantic. Disney knows how to do it for the youngins. The next day, we are brought together with the whole crew to kind of discuss what's going on and Zenon's issue. Of course, Margie's there to keep her eye on Greg because, of course, she wants Greg, and she's upset because Greg's attention is basically being taken up by Zenon. Greg also mentions that the disc that Zenon's been wearing that she got from Nebula before she got on the plane might have something to do with why someone breaks into her Aunt Judy's house. And the funny thing is, they go completely through Zenon's room, but it doesn't look like they really go through the rest of the house, which again raises suspicion as to what's on this disc. Fast forward a little bit, and Andrew finds out that this disc is actually a massive virus, and its purpose is to shut down whatever system it's entered into. Once they all start putting the pieces together, they realize that the plan is to take out an insurance policy on the space station so that they can collect insurance money from an eventual explosion. And that's really what the visit was about. We really need to discuss what just went down. So in this children's movie, meant for, I'm assuming, like 9 to 14-year-olds, roughly, the major plot in this movie is that the owner of this space station can't really afford it anymore, and instead of bringing it back down and shutting down this operation, he is going to commit insurance fraud and blow it up with all the people on board. That's a lot, dude. There's a lot of people on board. There's children. Wow, that's a lot for a Disney movie. It's a pretty standard plot. I just feel like it's a very heavy plot for a Disney Channel movie, but also go Disney Channel for actually putting some effort into these movies. So now that they've figured out the plan, they come up with a software that can reverse the effects of the virus because Disney magic, okay? The only way to properly get rid of this virus and put in the antivirus is to get it into the space station, which means they need to now figure out how to get Zenon on board the next available spacecraft to hopefully save the day. And wouldn't you know it, that rock concert I mentioned earlier, they still gotta get to the space station for this rock concert. So Zenon's like, I need to make sure I get onto that ship. So they bust into the Wyndham offices, they track down Protozoa, and she's like, begs with him basically, pleads with him, hey, I'm the winner from the dance contest. I'm supposed to be in the space station. Will you help me get back there? And surprisingly, he's just like, yeah, sure, okay. Come on board. Zenon says a quick goodbye to Greg. You know, I wanted a better first kiss. I've seen better first kisses in Disney Channel movies. You're better than this. Do better. And then Zenon is dashing off into the rocket ship. She had sent her Aunt Judy a message letting her know that she was going to try to get back to the space station. She loved her and appreciated everything that she did for her while she was there. Aunt Judy can't just be like, oh, okay, bye. Like, she finds out where Zenon is. She figures out that she's going to board that plane, and she gets on the plane too. Parker Wyndham and his assistant Lux know what Zenon is up to. They know that she's gotten on the plane. So then everybody ends up going up to space, which Parker Wyndham and Lux are obviously not very happy about because they know what's in store for them if they get back up there and things are not fixed. The end of the movie, in my opinion, is a little rushed. So if I sound really rushed kind of wrapping this up, I felt that way when I watched it. Basically, Zenon gets to the aircraft with the help of Nebula. They were able to kind of set things in motion to get her into the right space to keep the space station maintained for at least a little while she was on her way there. She finally gets up there. She's obviously battling with Commander Plank, who doesn't want to believe her, and her parents, who are confused because they don't really know what's going on. And Judy is suddenly in space, and she's like just in general shock because she doesn't like to fly. Remember, she's a scaredy cat. So she's just kind of in the background, but she's standing behind Zenon saying she knows that something strange is going on. Zenon eventually gets to the main computer bank. She's able to enter the antivirus disk. I think she has to guess some like codes because you know how these movies are. Like, you have to like punch in numbers and eventually like they'll get the right sequence. Of course, at the last minute, all the lights go out and we don't know what's gonna happen. Is the whole thing gonna explode with them inside of it? Or did Zenon hopefully save the day? And of course, Zenon saves the day. Commander Plank finally releases a little bit of his animosity towards her and gets Parker and his assistant arrested for what they had planned to do. We fast forward one more time to get to the microbe concert. Instead of taking her signature dance that she won, because she got to ride back with him and hang out with him during the trip back to the space station, she gives away her dance to her best friend Nebula for helping come through when she needed her most. And that is Zenon Girl of the 21st Century. So we broke down the movie, and now we have to figure out, what did we learn?
See, this is a penis!
I think the number one moral of the story, my number one takeaway, kids know everything. No, honestly, the thing that I really took away from this as a kid and even as an adult is that you should always trust your gut. Do your research and figure out why you feel that way. Sometimes you might be wrong, but sometimes you might be right. And it could be the difference between a life or death situation. I also learned that in space, there's a completely different lingo that you get to learn, and also Earth kids suck, for lack of a better term. The fashion in space is much more spandexy and very neon, but I'm very into it. Apparently in space, they barter with moon rocks and alien skulls, which I would also like to take this moment to talk about the fact that Disney just confirmed that there are aliens. And last but not least, the most important thing I think to learn from Zenon is to trust yourself, but also don't go into class 4 sectors without the proper supervision. Well, I don't have a whole lot of like fun facts, but the two that I did grab from IMDb is one, that this movie was filmed in actually Vancouver, or was it Vancouver or Toronto? I believe this movie was filmed in Vancouver and maybe a little bit of Toronto. So the city that you're seeing, that is all in Canada, but it is based somewhere in the United States. I just couldn't figure out exactly where. Actually, this movie was originally going to be a TV series, which I think is why I felt like the ending of it was so rushed, because it seems like the first half was supposed to just cover this girl who's like a misfit teen living in a space station and she's always getting in trouble. The ending of it must have been probably the end of the first season, so they just kind of condensed it into one movie, and I think that's why it felt like there was a lot of character development, and then the ending of it was just like, okay, we got to wrap up the plot though. Definitely feel like this could have been either or. Like, I love this as a movie, but I think it also would have been really fun to show this as a TV series. And I realized today when I was rewatching the movie that it actually says that this movie is based on a book. Oh, and last fun fact is that the little keypads that you see around this ship are actually those like leapfrog, like kids play like pads, and they just use them as like the aesthetic of that, like, you know, futuristic spacey vibe. And I always thought that that was really funny. I think for making this movie in 1999 and the limited amount of CGI technology they had at the time, not to mention, I'm sure the budget wasn't very large, I feel like they really created like its own universe. It really looked very believable to me. It has your silly preteen type storyline, but there's also this whole space aspect, which made it really fun and futuristic to think about and adventurous. So glad I finally filmed this for you guys. I've been wanting to talk about this movie forever. I hope I recapped the movie in a way that was really fun to watch, and if you've never seen this movie, maybe you'll want to go out and go check it out. Now, because Zenon was insanely popular, they did end up making 2 other sequels, which both star the main girl, who Kirsten Storms, who played Zenon. However, they do recast Nebula, who I don't think I mentioned earlier, but Nebula is played by Raven-Symone. And I think in the sequels, I think in both sequels, they actually ended up replacing her with the girl from The Color of Friendship. If you would like me to break down those movies to discover what it is we were supposed to learn in the rest of the Zenon series, let me know down in the comments below. I had a lot of fun talking about Zenon Girl of the 21st Century. I can't wait to go and live in a space station. Also, I'm gonna go listen to Zoom 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 on repeat for the rest of the day. Do me a solid and drop a like on this video if you enjoyed listening to my opinion. And if you would like to hear my opinion on all things pop culture, movie, music, TV, whatever, do me a solid and hit that subscribe button and the bell next to it so you'll be notified every time I upload. And until next time, I'll catch you guys later. Bye.